Hey guys, so I get asked pretty often. Um, I'm the founder of Proxies API, by the way, which which is a service that a lot of developers use to bypass IP blocks using Proxies API network, proxy network of over 2 million proxies using a simple API call. Now, I keep getting asked if we can develop a simple proxy server to understand how proxies work in Python. So I thought I'll take up that challenge and write a very simple one. Let's see how quickly and how little the overhead can be. It's a nice little challenge for me. So I'm going to use the simple HTTP server um, um, module in Python to do this. And let's see how simply we can get this going. Okay, so let's start. So I'm just going to go import socket server. Obviously, this is not going to scale because of all the because of all the complexity that goes into. We will discuss that as we go along. Simple HTTP server. I've typed this enough times for me to know this by heart. And for fetching the URL, we can use either request or URL lib. So in this case, I'm going to try and use the URL lib library. And what we then need is we need to take the simple HTTP server has a function called simple HTTP server request handler, and we need to be able to handle that, and we need to inherit that. So the way to do it is we just call our we create our own class. I'll call that my proxy. This is a proxy server that we are going to create, which will inherit a simple HTTP server. I don't want to make a mistake here in terms of spelling, notorious for that. And here we're going to use simple HTTP request handler. And yeah, all right. So that's your function. I've already named it simple proxy here. I'm just going to save this. And here we need to define for different. So the way this works is when you call this, we're going to see how we're going to call this now. But when you call this, you need to have a handler here specifically. This is class itself is the handler, but each function will handle different HTTP methods. Okay, define let's say do get is a get method. If you define do um, post is the post method. You can to put and delete all those methods here and handle all of that, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to keep it to do get. Okay, and it'll pass you the self object and you can do whatever you want with it. Okay, so this will come back to later. Okay, so now let's actually set this up in the sense that let's call this using the socket server.forking TCP server, right? So socket server is not HTTP server. You're going to tell how the socket itself, the socket layer itself is going to behave. Okay, so the socket server has, we're going to use forking TCP server, and then we are going to here um, we have to supply the my proxy here as a parameter, okay, our sort of thing. And before that we're going to supply uh, we're going to supply the local host here, um, the IP to bind to. In this case I can just leave it empty, and then the port, we don't want to leave that empty because 80 is always taken. So let's define the port as a variable somewhere. Okay, so the port at which our server has to be open and listening, because we are going to create a HTTP server. Remember, we're going to create an Apache of our own, right? So port equals I don't know, I'm going to call it 7070. That's pretty good. Yeah, 7070. um, that port, and then the proxy is what's the handler class, right? So the request handler will be the proxy. So you're telling that to the forking TCP server, and then this will be our HTTPD, our own server. There you go. Okay, and then we're going to call HTTPD. It has a wonderful function called serve forever. Okay, serve, serve, not server, serve forever, Wakanda forever. All right, there we go. So now what happens is this will start listening, but it expects you to handle it when there's a request over here. Okay, so let's actually save this and go here and see what happens. It goes into listening mode here a little bit. So if I say Python simple proxy.py, it should okay, oh yeah, because I need to do something here. And I'll just do that for a second. I think it might still throw an error. I'm doing it a little early, guys. Yeah, there you go. It just goes into that sort of blocking mode where it's like a window that's opened and listening for all the wind to come in. Okay, that's how HTTP proxies, HTTP server works. So it actually listens. It just waits, expecting somebody to ping it. Okay, and let's confuse it a little bit. Let's see what happens now. Let's open the browser and let's call localhost at 7070. See, oops. Yes, something happened here. I think those prints are happening here. All right. And that's what you see here. You can see the cursor moved. In fact, if we can just go here, I'm just going to kill this for a second. Yep. Here, I'm going to print request received from some browser. Okay, it's going to print here. It's going to print something here. Okay, it's listening. And then we go here and then we go boom. Then you'll see request received from some browser. Okay, bingo. So it was listening, and if I press once more, it should give you once more. Boom, there it is. Okay, it fires that. I think it's the browser retrying. That's why you'll see it 3 times the request received. It's probably a protocol by the browser saying, I'm going to keep retrying 3 times, and then before I display the error message. All right, so it's an empty response, so let's respond with something. Okay, let's respond. No matter what you say, no, we need to have a mechanism where I can request what it is that I want, right? So the way to do that is to actually send the URL here. So this is the final URL that we're going to get, right? http://example.com or something. Okay? So let's see if we can get example.com. And then, of course, that won't work here because we don't have a way to get that. So we're going to try and get that now. Okay, so let's kill this for a second. Go back here. Request received. So we should not be printing this because anything you print now is the browser takes it very seriously. So the first thing you need to print is actually send the headers first, right? So you need to send a HTTP 200 response, 200 response for it to feel that you responded in a positive manner. Okay, so we're going to learn how to do that. But before that, we need to see what it is that what's your get request contain, right? What's the end, the parameters of that in a way, right? So for that, what we do is we use the self.path command, and let's print this actually for a second. Inside, let me just show you step by step here how to do this, so you understand the meaning of everything. I could write the whole code here, but that's so fun. Okay, so it's now listening. Okay, so actually, let's just put something here which says I'm listening. Okay, now it feels a little weird to me. print um, hey, listening, boom, boom, boom. Okay, next time we run it, we do it's fine for now. Okay, now let's see. Now I'm going to go example.com as a parameter. I'm going to press enter. What happens? Yep, there you go. It gives you example.com with sort of that weird slash in front. So we can do something about that, right? So what I would suggest here is I would go and remove the first sort of the first item of it. So let's store this in a variable first of all. Variable should be URL, of course. URL has self.path. We've seen that that contains example.com, but we don't want the first character of it. It's always going to be that forward slash. So I'm going to remove that. Okay. So that removes the first character, telling the first character slice that off. Okay. Now, what we should do is we should actually get the sort of the URL, right? So for that we're going to use um, we're going to use um, we're going to use this command url lib. Sorry, I blanked out there for a second because I was thinking ahead. URL open is the command that we're going to use. Okay, and there we'll pass URL. Okay, so that's the way you do it. Okay. Now we'll have to do something with this. This will give us a response. But what we do, we use a self dot copy file. Okay, to send this response back. No matter what is there in that response, we'll also need to use a parameter self.w file to say that this is a file. And there you go. If you close it, this will serve the file that's there in that URL. How cool is that, isn't it? So let's try and do that. It won't work, and I'll show you why, but it's important for you to sort of learn that. Okay, there you go. Listening, hey. Then I press this. There, it doesn't quite work yet, right? Because something happened there, and it won't print now that we are going for example.com because of. I'll tell you what happened. It is an insight into how browsers actually behave, is because we did send the data back, but then we did not send any headers back. Remember, I told you that browsers need a positive response in the headers first, so it knows what it is. Is it an XML? Is it a so the headers are required because how else are you going to send cookies? How are you going to send session data? How are you going to send data which tells the browser what to do with the data? Like, is this a JSON file? Is it an HTML file? Is this an image? What's the MIME type? Should I allow this to be downloaded or displayed? Right? And is it gzipped in the sense that is it zipped? Is it sort of zipped? So yeah, I need to unzip it before I display it, right? So all these things come in the header first, right? So this is like a clue as to what the data is. So we need to it expects the header, right? All web servers send one, so let's send one. We don't have to pretend. The basic header that it expects, it can do away with almost no headers, but the one that it does expect is the status code. The status code has to be 200. Right? Let's say that's 200 because that's the first thing it looks for. Is that a successful response or is it a failure response? Or is it like a retry or whatever? Is it a timeout response? Is it a document not found response? Is it a redirect response? Right? So all of those things. Send response, and we need to say at this point the headers have been sent, end headers. Okay, because the headers can keep going actually for a while. You can send all sorts of custom headers as well. So there's no end to when is the headers done. It's done, and it actually sends a couple of line fields, I think, if I remember correct. Doesn't matter. To know that, okay, if there are two line fields back to back, line fields back to back, then know that the headers are ended or something like that. Okay, so this should return a decent. There you go. Now let's run it. Bingo. Here we go. That's our proxy, guys. There it is. As simple as that. Okay. From this simple thing, you can build your own proxy and you can put this on your own server and do whatever you want with this. Okay. In just literally 18 lines, we've actually created a proxy here. Okay. I'll put a note to this. Don't worry about the code for this. This is great fun. And of course, if you're interested in proxy servers and if you want production level proxy servers, which has millions of these, um, residential IPs through which we route, and we handle sessions, we handle custom headers, we handle uh, captchas, we handle even JavaScript rendering, automatic retries, all behind the scenes. If you're really serious about web scraping, if that's why you're watching this, please use Proxies API. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did.